a lot of people blew it out of proportion, even blacks blew it out of proportion. A lot of things they did, they shouldn't have did, but you know.
Blacks has always been held down, and it's about time, you know, a black reply, because we're so busy fighting each other, you know what I'm saying? It don't make no sense. We should fight together.
We lost two young people, and I didn't want to see any more young people lost, so that's why I was out there.
When really we're in the same boat together, we're in the same community together, we're going through a lot of the same struggles together.
Segregation, racism can lead to the ultimate, to what I saw at Buchenwald.
Black-Jewish alliances have been instrumental in making the city be responsive to justice issues throughout time eternal.
Catch the video to it, we're gonna do it. The UCK snow, one black, one white. Heads turn and burn with the mic at night. I'm UCK, the city slick, a bad boy from Brooklyn. The strong survive, the weak keep looking. Frustrated, mad, meatballs.
On August 19th, 1991, 7-year-old Gavin Cato was struck and killed by a car in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. The car was driven by Yosef Lifsh, a Hasidic Jew. Later that night, Yankel Rosenbaum, a Hasidic man, was stabbed by a black youth. The next few days were punctuated by bottle throwing and confrontations between blacks, Hasidim, and the police. The fact that the driver of the car was not arrested for Cato's death angered black residents, who again raised the issue of preferential treatment for the Hasidim of Crown Heights. Meanwhile, some Jews felt the stabbing of Yankel Rosenbaum was an anti-Semitic attack.
Hi, I'm Stephen Smith. I live not too far from where the incidents in Crown Heights happened. Now, growing up and hanging out in this neighborhood, you might say that I have an insider's view. I see Crown Heights as a microcosm of what's really going on throughout the whole city. Now, walking through my neighborhood daily, I still sense tension between African Americans and Hasidic Jews. The events in Crown Heights motivated us from EBC to explore the long-term relationships between African Americans and American Jews.
Greetings, I'm Fatima Benison and I also reside in Brooklyn. Our motto was to go behind closed doors and get at what the media didn't tell us. If you don't live in Crown Heights, you may not be aware of the variety of feelings people have in the community. We'll begin by sharing some voices we heard in the streets of Crown Heights.
How long have you been living in Crown Heights?
Well, I've been living in Crown Heights for the past 7 years.
What are the relationships between blacks and Jews in your neighborhood?
They don't have a close relationship. And basically, the black stays on their side of the neighborhood, and the Hasidic stays on a different side of the neighborhood.
How do you feel about the incident that happened here in Crown Heights in August 1991?
Well, I was there from when the incident started till it ended, but really what happened, the community was mad by the way the religious Jew ambulance just picked up the Jew, which he wasn't hurt, and just took him when it had 2 kids sliding in there, and that pissed the black people off, which it should. If it was my son, I'd do the same thing. I'd start a riot myself.
I don't think what happened in Crown Heights was really right, because if someone's dying, you should take them to a hospital, no matter if they're black or white or whatever color they are. And I don't think that all the violence and all that was really necessary, because violence doesn't really solve anything.
Words that's causing a problem right now. Once you see some of my friends on the block that I know, once they see a Jew, they're gonna say something, call him Hitler or something, and say something bad, and you know the Jew gonna react to that and say something back. And it's gonna cause a big confusion right there, gonna cause a big conflict right there.
I was trying to get to Eastern Parkway when it was a nice riot going by. We were waiting for a whole bunch of other Jewish people, waiting for the riot to pass through so we can cross over. And there was one black person on a bicycle. I don't know what his problem was, but he started cursing me out and calling me every name in the book. Now, I mean, the best thing I would do is give a little smile and stand there. I mean, I wasn't going to walk away. And what happened was, after he started screaming, he got about a whole bunch of other people that came after me and started cursing me out, saying Hitler didn't do the job, and he should have done you instead of anybody else.
They own a lot of business, they got more respect. It's like they want to push us out of our neighborhood, you know? And they get more money. They're showing us that they could do better, that they could do better than us. And they, they're trying to wipe us out. You know that. I don't got nothing against them, but that's what it seems. That's what it seems like it looking like, because they own everything around my neighborhood. They own my building, they own everything, every store, every corner store right there. You see, as a Jew owner, own it.
The perception is that we own everything and that we control the economics and the politics. When I must tell you, being in the community for 10 years, you know, in the Hasidic community, that people feel very disenfranchised from the political scene and from the economic scene. The Chabad community is not a wealthy community, you know, unfortunately. They're not, you know, you don't have like in other Hasidic communities where a lot of the guys are into diamonds and stuff, you just don't have that here. Most people are really struggling.
This is the whole point. The blacks has always been held down, so therefore you're supposed to come together and fight this thing, fight this oppression that's that's been on us. We have to lift this up. And you know, that's the whole point basically. I mean, people doing this for their own financial gain. When this incident happened, when people was robbing the stores, that wasn't right. Because that was just a good opportune moment for them to go rob something. I didn't respect that at all. But as far as marching, I respect that because a brother was killed.
While researching our project, we found and interviewed David Larson and Richard Green, two youth group organizers who are working to improve relations between blacks and Jews within the Crown Heights community.
There have been a lot of incidents in the community that has led to this culmination on August 19th. You've had the whole question of inequities, of double standards, of preferential treatment. These are certain catchwords that you probably have heard in the media over the course of this whole situation.
Can you tell us, what do people mean when they say there is preferential treatment given by the police to Hasidim in Crown Heights?
Well, if you go up on Kingston Avenue, today happened to be Saturday, is a good example. If you go up on Kingston and Eastern Parkway, one lane of Eastern Parkway will be cut off, will be closed off. Police car will be across that lane. No traffic can go through. If you live on that block, which on that block you have a lot of blacks, Hasidics, Hispanics living in together. If you lived on that block and you were coming home from shopping, you would have to park your car down the street and then walk back to your house because you can't get through. People in our community say, well, how come the Grand Rebbe gets a police escort to go to the cemetery? That's one of the other questions of preferential treatment. If I park my car at 8:05 in the morning on my block, I'll get a ticket. And if you go down, it's an old saying in our community now, when you walk outside and the meter maid is giving you a ticket, you say, people will say it all the time, almost automatically. I bet you don't do that on Kingston Avenue.
We make an effort to get along with the police and to work with them, but at the same time, a lot of people feel that they've been victimized by the police. I'm talking from the Hasidic community. I know one time I double parked my car to unload my groceries, and a cop came by and started writing me out a ticket. And I said, I'm unloading my groceries, and he said to me, park up at the corner, Jew. You know, this was a white cop who, you know, so I said, I got to park at the corner to unload my groceries? And he said, no. You know, I said, he says, yeah, unless you want a ticket, that's what you'd better do. So I pretended to get in my car and move it, and when he drove away, I left it there and unloaded the groceries.
In 1978, we had a young man by the name of Victor Rhodes, was walking home from his girlfriend's house on Carroll Street. He was accosted by a Hasidic patrol because he couldn't identify himself fast enough. He was chased, he was grabbed, he was beaten into a coma. He spent weeks and weeks in a hospital recovering from a coma for absolutely no reason. Nobody was arrested.
I have really long argued that we should have joint patrols. You know, I think there's nothing wrong with patrolling your own community, you know, especially if crime is on the rise, that kind of thing.
In 1988, we had a house burnt on Crown Street. A resident was being asked to sell a house, but they chose not to sell. And the house all of a sudden mysteriously caught on fire.
I have friends of mine who come up to me and say, you know, if you hear of anybody who's selling a house, let me know. And so that's how it kind of spreads. But there's nothing like you know, there's no like blockbusting going on or, you know, that kind of stuff.
There are 100,000 Africans and Hispanics in this community. There are 20,000 Hasidics. A few years ago, during the Koch administration, they came up with a plan called a Solomon Plan, meaning one house would be given, one building be given to the Hasidic community, one building would be given to the African community. However, though it sounded that it was fair, our community didn't see it as fair. Why? Because if you're talking about 100,000 people versus 20,000 people, and you say 1 to 1, then it's not fair. It should be 5 to 1.
We found that many people, blacks and Jews, were unhappy with the sensationalist media coverage of their community. After reviewing some newscasts, we couldn't help but agree.
To me, the media didn't cover the whole story. To me, the media is basically one-sided. It's a one-sided, you know, a one-sided newscast or stuff. Because the way they go at it is like the Jews was right and the black people was wrong. You know? The part of the right the media did not cover was the part when the police was doing their thing.
Can you give us some of the numbers of blacks, Hispanics, or Hasidim that were arrested in these demonstrations?
Okay, we didn't break down African and Hispanic per se. We did break down the African Americans, Hispanic, and Hasidic. We had 4 Hasidic male arrested and 146 African and Hispanic male and females that was arrested during the crises.
I know a few people that was arrested for like rioting and robbing people, but I know a few people that got arrested for no reason, standing around just watching the marches. Just took them, threw them in a police car. I know a few people that was beat up by police. You know,
they were innocent bystanders.
Yes, they were innocent bystanders.
A lot of the young people were just out there. They were just standing around on their stoop. When the cop, during the peak of the crises, if you were more than 6 people walking together, you had to have a police escort. So if you were walking in a crew of 7 people, you could be arrested for inciting a riot.
I went up there to find out what's happening. And as soon as I got up there, I saw people start running and the cops started chasing them. And I got thrown to the ground and got beat on and stuff like that. And afterwards, I was walking through the park and the cops spit in my face.
A lot of young people under 15 years old were arrested, were sent upstate to Spofford. You know, so families would come in looking for a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old. Where's my son? Where's my daughter? They're up at Spofford. We were able to get that information. They were showing the young people that were throwing the rocks. They were showing the young people that were running in the streets. They were showing the cars turned over. They didn't show young people sitting down dialoguing with each other or going out at night and talking to their peers about not staying out on the street or going out and finding out what happened to young people that were arrested. These were young people doing this all on their own, at their own risk. This wasn't being told.
And if the media had taken the role that was just a minor incident, you know, that got out of hand between a few people running around and you know, doing criminal activities, which nobody ever did that. But instead because people who were damaged weren't just Jews. There were a lot of people in this block. Most of the cars that were damaged belonged to their non-Jewish neighbors. But since the media decided to take a role of, because it sells, it makes money when you say one person hates another person, so immediately people take sides, you know. But if the media had taken a different role, then I think it would have come out differently.
Media, I feel, in a way, kind of puts a wedge between the black and the Jewish community, where we end up looking upon each other as enemies when really we're in the same boat together, we're in the same community together. When Richard and I first met, and we kind of really hit it off right away from the beginning, you know. One of the things that came up was that the teenagers from both communities had stereotypes about each other, and that really were, for the most part, unfounded. You know, like some of the Jewish fellows would say, well, you know, we have to protect our homes and you know, from guys breaking into the homes and breaking into our cars. And then the black teenagers who were there would say, well, we don't do those kind of things. We don't steal. So, you know, don't stereotype us.
We started first to just have them young people sit down and talk to get some of the feelings out. How come you always all you guys wear sneakers? How come all of you all wear black? How come you all look at us funny when we walk down Kingston Avenue? That kind of spirit. We talked about it. The first 2 meetings, we just talked. The second meeting, we sat down and we talked, and the ice was broken a little bit. The Hasidic youth were saying, yeah, well, we like the cops in our neighborhood. The Africans and Hispanics were saying, no, we don't. We don't want all these cops in our neighborhood. All they do is harass us. So this was the kind of back and forth that was happening.
Right after that, you know, what I thought was going to, okay, now let's just move on and we'll just shake hands, you know, and be buddies. Nobody was ready to do that.
Once we began to talk to each other, things began to come up. Hey, do you like touch football? Yeah, I like touch football. What team do you like? You like the Giants or the Jets? Oh, you like basketball? Oh yeah, you like the Knicks? You like the Lakers? That sort of thing. Hey, can you guys play? We didn't know Hasidics can play basketball. You know, can you guys play basketball? Yeah, we play basketball just like you guys. You know, so we said, okay, we challenge you all. Come on over and play a game. So that's how it started.
So we went to one of the yeshivas to play ball there, and this was after playing at Medgar Evers College, which Medgar Evers is, you know, beautiful new facility, fiberglass backboards, you know. And so they said, okay, now let's go to yeshiva and check that out. And, you know, the floor sort of goes like this, and the backboards are plywood with the bolts sticking out. And so some of the black teenagers came up and said to me, you know, this is your gym, this is your school? Yeah, we can't believe this. In other words, they had the notion that, you know, somehow that the door handles are made out of gold, you know, because it's, you know, in the yeshiva. And, you know, so I think in a gut level, you know, of the youth needing really to see each other and to meet each other, and what happens is they begin to see each other as human beings, you know, instead of like, you know, quote-unquote, the other side.
Those few young people who yelled Heil Hitler, they're being projected as being the voice of our community. That's not the voice of our community. We tell our young people. They know when they see a picture of the runner, the great runner who ran at Olympics in 1936, Jesse Owens. That Jesse Owens ran in the Olympics in 36, and the whole idea that the Nazi Germany was the host of the Olympics that year, and their whole idea was to make all Africans look as diminutive, as small as they could. And Jesse Owens went out there and broke all the records. And when they were presenting the gold medal to him, Hitler walked off the stand. He didn't even want to be part of it. So these are the things that our young people know about what Nazism. And during Nazism, they came after blacks before they even came after Jews. These are the kinds of things that our young people don't know. Our history they're not being taught this in school.
Hi, I'm Richard Fields.
And I'm Julius Bogan.
We looked into history and found out that in the past, blacks and Jews were never as separate as they are today. During our research, we came across Leon Bass, one of 370,000 African-American soldiers who fought in World War II. We traveled to Philadelphia to interview him.
In our interview with Mr. Bass, we found out that he was a part of the 183rd Engineer Combat Battalion, which helped liberate Jews and others at Buchenwald concentration camp. After talking to Mr. Bass, we realized that Nazism and racism are enemies to all people.
Nobody ever talked about some of the things we did in the Battle of the Bulge. No one talked about the 761st Tank Battalion, which was black, who fought all the way through Europe with General Patton.
Well, when I went into the armed forces, I discovered something. I found out that institutional racism was part of our country's system. You see, when I went down to the induction center that day, they separated me. They sent me one way and they sent all my white friends another way, because all of the armed forces were segregated in 1943. And so they finally made me a part of the 183rd Engineer Combat Battalion. And we had our training in places like Georgia, Mississippi, Texas, and Louisiana on war games. And then I ended up outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, in every one of these places, as a soldier, I found out that the people that I had sworn to protect and defend were looking at me as though I was not good enough to enjoy what all Americans are supposed to enjoy. And that was the kind of experience that I had all through my training while I was here in the United States.
Would you say that blacks were treated equally in the war or unequally?
Well, I think that pretty much stands for itself, that when you have two separate armies, you are sending a message saying that you're not good enough, you are inferior. But we made them aware that that was not so, because we demonstrated that we was equal to, and some days even surpassed some of the other soldiers, because we had to keep in mind continually what goal we were seeking, and that goal was to fight to get rid of the racism that created the hostilities in Europe, and to remember that we had to focus on the hostilities and the racism back here at home. So we had a double duty. So it took a good soldier to do that.
It was called Buchenwald. And it was not the largest of the concentration camps. It was a labor camp. There were others that were death camps. Places like Auschwitz, Treblinka, Mauthausen, a host of others where you go and you only spent maybe a day before they took you to what they call the showers, where the gas was, and then you ended up in the ovens. The day that I walked through the concentration camp gates of Buchenwald, and I saw what I saw, I can never say that I'm callous about human life. It made me know that human life is sacred. Because when I walked through those gates in the spring of April of 1945, I was totally unprepared for what I saw, and I saw what I can refer to now as the walking dead. I saw human beings there that had been beaten and starved and tortured, and they were so mistreated that they were nothing but human skeletons.
They were skin and bone, and they had those skeletal faces with the deep-set eyes, and their heads had been clean-shaved. And they were standing there holding on to one another. They were so thin. They had sores on their body that were brought on by malnutrition. And that man held out his hands, and his fingers had webbed together with the scabs that come from malnutrition. And I just said to myself, my God, what is this? This is some kind of insanity. Who are the people? What did they do that was so wrong? And that's when I found out that they were Jews and gypsies. Some were Jehovah's Witnesses. They were trade unionists, they were communists, they were homosexuals. He went on and told us there were so many different groups placed in that camp by the Nazis, and what did the Nazis use as a yardstick as to who would be chosen to go there? They said those people who were not good enough, those people who were inferior, they could be segregated. So you see what I mean? Segregation, racism can lead to the ultimate, to what I saw at Buchenwald.
I do strongly feel that the civil rights movement in these United States came into being in a large measure because of the experiences of the young African-American soldiers in World War II. When they came back, they were of a mind to say no more of this second-class Mickey Mouse operation. No more of that. They wanted things to change, and I think many of them became leaders in that field for change.
At the Jewish Museum, this racially mixed group of junior high school students was learning about the civil rights movement in the 60s. Hi, my name is Joe. I'm a student at EVC. We thought that it was important to interview people that participated in the civil rights struggle to get their reflection on the black and Jewish relationship today. In November 1991, EVC taped a press conference called by the Black and Jewish Workshop. After the press conference, we interviewed Margie Fine of Jews for Racial and Economic Justice and Marshall England of the Bronx Homeless Task Force. Margie and Marshall represent the kind of alliance that developed during the civil rights movement in the 60s. From them, we learned the ups and downs of that alliance and why it is so crucial that all groups come together to fight inequality today?
In terms of the white community, the Jews were the more active of the white community involved in the civil rights struggle. In New York Core, as an example, where I was chair, the likely white that was in there was a Jewish person. Although there were whites, there were non-Jews, but most of the whites were Jews. So that was a better relationship. Better in that we were fighting for, at that time, voting rights. We were fighting for equal access to jobs and things like that. So we had more of a common reason to fight, to struggle for.
There were even more very domestic, very close to the home quality of life issues that really discriminated against both groups and really brought them together. And then, as Marshall was saying, certain Jews were accepted more, kind of shot up more into the middle class, and suddenly became the helpers rather than the partners with people in that alliance. And then I think that made a very big difference in how we came to work together. And I think that also some Jews in the 60s had seen themselves as alliances, and when Black Power as a movement took off, were confused as to what their role for that might be. Were they being shut out? Were they going to be there to be helpers? How could they help make such a movement blossom? What would be their role in doing this? Or in fact, would they not have a role because Black leadership was getting stronger and stronger in a certain direction?
Power brokers use groups to drive wedges between them so that they can stay in their advantaged positions. You heard the old saying that 5% of the population controls approximately 90% of its wealth. And that's being done by virtue of dividing people. As long as blacks and Hispanics fight over crumbs, those that don't need crumbs will continue to not need crumbs.
Black-Jewish alliances have been instrumental in making the city be responsive to justice issues throughout time eternal, as long as we've both been here. And I think that one of the reasons why Marshall and Judy Wessler called this group together was because together we're going to make the city be strong again and be responsive again. We might call on other allies, the Latino community, the Korean community, the Asian community, other progressive forces in the city to come and join us. But these two peoples for a long time have fought to make the city the best that it can be. And only together, by making that alliance be strong again, can we make things continue forward.
If you're talking to me, relating to another, you can't judge a book
by looking at the cover.
Yeah. Okay, now you ready? Next verse. You see, politicians, their fingers are itching. They keep on wishing that our brains went fishing, add fuel to the fire, increase the rage. They only want their pictures on the front page. Every issue is the color of our tissue. It's outright crazy. They got to know it takes the whole spectrum to make a rainbow. A stereotype is in theory a hype. It smacks on a label and puts you in a box. Says you're not able, then it closes the lock. Don't matter if you're black, white, yellow, red, or purple. Treat everyone you meet as an individual. Together, working together. I said together, overcome stormy weather. Next verse, I forgot it. It's been a while since we did this. You see, me and my boys overcame the hype as we broke through each other's stereotype. We don't murder, we don't steal, we work hard to buy a meal. We don't do drugs to get our spirits flowing, like to keep our brain cells alive and growing. I ain't into money and I love to play ball. It's true, my friends, when God made us all. So as you go through life with your sisters and brothers, remember, you can't judge a book
by looking at the cover.
Said you can't judge a book
by looking at the cover.
Said you can't judge a book
by looking at the cover. Yeah!